Freeze time is often understood as 15 seconds to relax, go AFK or joke around, but in Pro CS it is an important part of the round for every single player. Here are some of the tips and rules to make the time as efficient as possible. Number one is to give space to your leader to make a call. If you need to say something instead of interrupting others, use other forms of communication unless it is very important information that would change the call by your leader. So you can use team chat for this mainly, but also you can use pings or certain code words that you discuss with your team prior to that. And please turn on pings. It's really helpful in a lot of situations. Even though it's pretty buggy in freeze time, it can save a lot of time for the whole team, and this is the command for it, so use that. Number two is avoid interrupting people talking when you don't need to. So if you need to tell something important, you can use the team chat as we discussed, but if you need to drop, crouch and look at a teammate with the most money, also use team chat to ask for what you need exactly and from whom. So this goes the other way around too. When you are in the freeze time, to just be AFK. Look around if teammates need something. Check spawns of teammates or offer nades to others who need them more on their position than you. Essentially, you can use pinging for this as well as writing in team chat something like name, need smoke, and flash for this setup, drop it to me. You really always want to try to include the name of who should drop you and do it in the start of the sentence. That will mean other teammates don't have to read the whole message and can focus on what is being said by the leader or a coach. But still be aware of what is happening. Maybe your teammates spawn too far apart and they are unable to drop things to each other and they need to use you as kind of a middleman. Nothing is worse than creating a plan and unaware teammate screws it up by accidentally picking up nade, not noticing it and not passing it to the correct guy. So there's a difference. I need the AWP, guys, drop me. So saying this, no one knows what to do. People start looking at the money again to see who has the most of it, and then they need to buy it, maybe use someone as a middleman. It's just a mess. When you demand something from someone, use the name of that person. Example number two is simple, drop me AWP. Now he instantly knows what to do. Others can almost ignore this message unless they're obviously standing between me and simple, then they just need to be this kind of middleman to redrop the AWP towards me. And then there's optional tip as well. Keep track of your own UD in scoreboard. So UD, utility damage, and utility damage is probably the most important piece of information you can read from the scoreboard. It is a good habit to check it during the freeze time if you have some spare time in order to understand how effective your grenades are. Sometimes people think their nades are bad because Molotov did only 10 damage and your UD barely changes, but think of it that your Molotov prevented aggression that the opponent wanted to do, and when Molotov landed, they changed their mind. Maybe they will try to do the same aggression next round because they think you did not see it and they can surprise you. However, since you check the utility damage, you can play these mind games with opponents, and instead of blocking his aggressive play, you can counter it by being ready or ask your AWPer to hold for this specific move. These examples, I decided to jump into the CS and actually show you what I mean, because it's really hard to talk about this without being on the server. So let's show some Inferno examples what I mean by keeping track of UD on both D side and C side. So on Inferno, as an apps player, you might do something like this in the beginning of the round. The combo that is really well known in the pro scene, so you smoke off long and you molly off short. Now, nothing that's interesting, but if CT decided to go for an OP peek in the beginning of the round from short and he doesn't see anything, this molly will trigger him being, unsafe, and he will decide to fall back. And by forcing him falling back, he will have to tank a little bit of damage here, maybe like that. And you will get this cue. Maybe not the sound cue because you're all the way somewhere here, but you will get this cue through the scoreboard utility damage, and you will see that he went for this kind of peak, or there's a chance he went for that peak. And next round you can say like to your AWPer, hey, I think he's gonna peek down short. You can hold him either from here with an AWP, or you can post up from the Maxi all the way. Maybe you can go closer to the bench and hold him like this. Just, this is the mind games that I'm talking about. So you can do something similar on C side as well, where you throw this molly in the beginning of the round, and probably it will make T's take apps a little bit differently. Maybe they will get a tick here and there, and you will see it in the scoreboard, UD changed, and probably next round, instead of throwing this molly and forcing them not to go fast because they probably wanted to do it, you can post up AWP into APS, or you can do the APS setup with AWP being here and you as a rifler being ready for the boiler guy. Now, these are the mind games that are coming into play whenever your UD changes slightly, and obviously you have to pay attention. If you only threw molly that round, that's the only way to deal damage. But if you have HE as well, you have to take it into account that probably that HE did damage instead. So be mindful of where you're throwing your things and how it changes the round and mind game with your opponent. Now, general timeline of a freeze time, 15 seconds or a little bit more, depends on the tournament, is different from map to map and depends if you're on T side or C side. There are multiple layers to this, so let me explain how it usually goes on top level, and I will use probably Inferno as an example. So let's start with CD side. For CD side, IGL is not going to be as needed because every player needs to show initiative. It is good rule to share responsibility of IGL into some kind of mini IGLs. One is responsible for creating plans on B side and banana, and one is responsible for A side and middle. It would be kind of pointless for IGL to create plans for side that he doesn't play and can't pay attention to what is happening on both parts of the map. B-side players usually use voice comms to quickly organize or tweak banana take, because sometimes you need to adjust things mid-game or time the nades differently than what you're discussed or what you're used to. So those moments, voice chat is better option. While A players use team chat to come up with a plan because it is easier and more calm early round on A side. Now let's move on to the T side. So first thing is for sure look around, check spawns and check team money. Number 2, suggestion phase. This is what I call it, that these players can quickly suggest rounds or moves that are possible to do on their part of the map and CTs are not countering it. So example, as an apps lurker myself, I can suggest that apps pop would be strong as CTs play often mid setup or heavy mid setup. And part number 3 is going to be something what I call IGL call or IGL phase. This is where the idea of the round is presented and IGL may or may not take the suggestions by others into consideration. So if you suggest things and IGL is not implementing them, do not feel discouraged, offended or ignored. Maybe he's saving it for the later stage of the game. Number 4, buy phase. That is depending on what the call is, so buy accordingly. Try to implement the habit of only buying within the second period or second half of the freeze time, when it is clear what nades or weapons you and your teammates need. Number 5 is ask for things. So during the buy phase, if you're in need of a crucial piece of utility that strat depends on, demand it from someone else who either have more money or his utility is optional. Number 6 is perfect time to check UD. Sometimes there's extra time at the end of the freeze time to spare, and that's great opportunity for you to focus on more individual tasks such as UD checking, as we mentioned, or keeping track of your ADR. Maybe you dealt solid damage last round with a wallbang or smoke spam, but you wouldn't even know had you not checked. So this is kind of a more individualistic part of the freeze time. And then number 7, I would call it something like player initiative. This period can stretch to even after freeze time as you run out of the spawn. Create little plans for you or your teammates, how you want to take banana or mid, for example. This shouldn't be IGL's responsibility per se to micromanage you. Bring the idea on your own position and ask for help if needed. And then there's obviously kind of a buffer, so remind how they play, what works for them, and how can you change up the tempo to surprise your opposition. So this buffer happens usually when there's not much to say in the freeze time and you have already things pre-planned, and this leaves you in the, this reminding fashion of what is good and how you can win more rounds as you did before. So there's a note I want to mention is to create code words for common and repeating tasks or plays. This will save you a lot of time in freeze time, obviously. So, for example, instead of saying this in freeze time,
"Hey, Styko, I want you to come short with me and you will boost me next to the pallet. I have an op. JL, I want you to play in the boiler to listen for steps, second mid. If you hear someone, let us know so we'll fall back and block middle. If you don't hear anyone, however, use molly and abs in case they take it fast."
So this is obviously, I'm exaggerating, but this is something that we usually do in our team, and we call it Voxic Boost. And we can discuss this whole move on empty server and create a name or a code word for it. Whenever OP feels like it's a good time to do it, instead of taking all that extra time in freeze time to explain, he just writes in chat Voxic Boost, and we instantly know what we do in the first 20 seconds of the round. This leaves opportunity for B players to discuss how they want to fight for banana, for example. That part of the map is heavily contested and maybe they need to adjust their takes on the fly or mid-game. This creates really nice cohesion between sides, as we mentioned before. So B side is using voice comms, while A side is using team chat. Another note, so this is called something what I call spreading the responsibilities among all players, making it easier for everyone. And I will give you a couple of examples as well. So examples for player 1, you would want him to be responsible for keeping track of economy, and he can use chat for this. He can use binds if he's familiar with those. They have a full buy, they have a forced buy, they have a half buy, they're on full eco, they save M4 and op. This is something I saw Yekindar doing. He mentioned it on his stream. He used to do it in Outsiders. I'm pretty sure he does it until now, and he's really good at it, so check his video out about that. Player number 2, probably the IGL, is going to be responsible for creating plans for the round. Let him talk and please listen to him as well. Player 3, let's say it's an OPer. He's going to be responsible for opponent's op tendencies. So he's going to say something like, I killed him on middle last round, careful, he goes for banana peek instead, or apps setup, if we stay on the Inferno example. Player number 4 is going to be responsible for spreading good mood, good vibes, cheering. Obviously do this when all important things are already discussed and you have some time left in freeze time. Essentially, you can do this at the end of the rounds instead, before freeze time even starts. It would be good to give this role to a player that likes to do this. Some players are not showing too much emotions, I would say, so don't give this responsibility to someone who prefers to stay calm, otherwise it can break their, focus points where they perform well. Player 5, responsible for calling timeouts to calm down or talk things through. So this example, sometimes, timeouts are called by coach or IGL, but if there is a tension or nerves, it is good to calm down and talk. Sometimes it is hard to spot it, but if you have a player who focuses solely on this, it is easier to recognize. Also, another good rule might be to call for timeouts every time you, let's say, lose 3 rounds in a row. That can help to break the momentum of other team and allows you to create a better approach. Or calling a tactical timeout before a round that will shift economy. Let's say both teams have full buy and it's a close game, like 12-12. Whoever loses this round goes on eco. That is the perfect timing to call for a timeout. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I really wanted to show you that freeze time is not really just 20 seconds of players just being AFK and drinking water or something. It's really crucial part of the round, but viewers often misunderstand it because nothing much is happening, but there's a lot of calls happening on the TeamSpeak or voice comms. So I really wanted to give you an idea of how many layers to this is, and every team is different, everyone is different. This is what I prefer, what we're doing in a team, and I think a lot of young teams and young players can get a little bit of kick from this video to improve their freeze time and calling and make the responsibilities spread across the team rather to focus on IGL only. So I hope you like this, and see you in the next one.